Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and in today's episode, we're going to be going over and recapping the Orioles' 5-1 loss to the Athletics. And unfortunately, that means that the Orioles did lose this series 2-1. They lost the series to the Athletics, and this was a much needed series win that they needed to go out and get, and unfortunately, they could not do that. They lose this game 5-1. Once again, the Orioles cannot hit with runners in scoring position literally at all. I think they went 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. And the game ended literally like 5 minutes ago, so fresh off the game, talking about the loss. The Orioles could not get a hit with runners in scoring position. The Orioles also could not score. And this game was very similar to yesterday's game, where early on in the game, the Orioles were down 4-1 in the second inning in this game. Tomoyuki Sugano gave up 4 runs in the second inning. It was not a great game for him, but he didn't play bad enough to where this game was unwinnable. Again, this game was 1-1 after the first inning, and then going into the third inning, this game was 4-1. The Orioles were losing, and the 4 runs that happened in the second inning were 4 of the 5 total runs that were scored in this game. We lost this game 5-1, but Tomoyuki Sugano gave up a bunch of runs early, and then he kind of settled back in, was able to kind of go as far as he could, and then the bullpen came into the game and tried their best to hold it down and give this offense a chance to come back into the game. But unfortunately, the offense, very similar to Game 1 in this series where they lost by 1 run, very similar to Game 1, this game they could not hit with runners in scoring position at all. They only scored 1 run all game. The offense was completely dead, and the blame of this game goes to the offense. The pitching didn't necessarily play spectacular. Tomoyuki Sugano kind of, had one of his worst starts of the season, but this game was very much winnable. The bullpen kept this game in check, and the Tomoyuki Sugano start didn't get too out of hand to where the offense just couldn't get back into it. We just couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. The offense was kind of just dead today, and unfortunately, it was a rubber match game where winner takes a series, and the Orioles lose this game. They lost the series, and they have now, not gotten back into like a cold streak of games, but they have lost 2 of their last 3. They did, lose this series 2-1, and they couldn't keep this series winning streak going. If they won this series today, that would have been 3 straight series wins in a row, but unfortunately it stops at 2, and we have a day off tomorrow, and then we're going to play the Tigers on Tuesday, and the Tigers, as y'all know, the Tigers are one of the best teams in baseball. I think they have a top 3 record in baseball overall. I remember they were the first team in the American League to hit 40 wins, and also the first team in baseball to hit 40 wins. So the Tigers have been incredible this year. Their pitching's incredible. Their offense has been very solid, and the Tigers have been doing a lot that they could do to win games, and unfortunately, that's kind of the opposite when it comes to the Orioles. So it's going to be an interesting series. Hopefully, the Orioles can win that series against the Tigers. But before we go over that series and kind of give a little preview of that series, let's just get over this Orioles game. So going over this Orioles 5-1 loss to the Athletics. Now the Orioles are 26-38 on the season. Their record goes as 26-38, 14-21 on the road, and they're back to being 12 games below 500 on the season. They were out 11 games yesterday, and if they won today, they would have cut that deficit down to 10 games, but it's back up to 12 games below 500. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but this was really a series that the Orioles needed to go out and win. The Athletics were the coldest team in baseball going into the series. They lost 20 of their previous 22 games going into the series. On the season as a whole, the Athletics lost 20 of their past 22 games going into the series, and then they, are at home, they face the Orioles, and then all of a sudden they win 2 out of 3, and now the Athletics have a little bit of momentum going for them. So this was a series that you really needed to take. You were facing the Athletics at the perfect time, and they were also playing you at the perfect time. The Orioles were the hottest they were all season. The Athletics were the coldest team in baseball. And unfortunately, the Orioles just kind of couldn't take advantage of that and couldn't get the win. Couldn't get the series win, lose this series. It's really heartbreaking and really unfortunate because this is one of those series where you really had to take this one against this team, especially when you're about to go face the Tigers. You really had to go take this series, and they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't take the series. They couldn't win it. But, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. This season has had a lot of downs to it, obviously, and the only real big positive this season was that 6-game winning streak that they were on, and that little bit of stretch of games that they were on, which they still like kind of are on that stretch of games. They're still on a pretty nice streak when you look at like the past 15 games as a whole. They are still on a pretty nice streak, but the Orioles just got to get back on track, and they have to get back on track against the Tigers. And again, as I've said multiple times, this Orioles team, if they want to get back to being in a position where they could potentially make the playoffs or just get into a comfortable position with the season, they have to do that by the time they get to the trade deadline, because the Orioles have guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins, Tomoyuki Sagano, and Zach Eflin. All four of those guys, there's a lot of contending teams where if they see the Orioles and if they look at the record and if they see that we're struggling a lot, still by the time the trade deadline comes around, there's going to be contending teams that are going to be reaching out and trying to get guys like the people I just named. Like, they're going to try and go out and get those guys because they have 1 year left on their deal and they're pending free agents, and there's someone that a lot of teams would definitely want to take a risk on, because it could help a lot of contending teams get over that edge to really maybe compete for a World Series. And obviously, as we know, this Orioles team has been a disaster this season. So we're not even really going to talk playoffs, obviously, because we're 12 games below 500 and a bottom 6 record in baseball. But there are a lot of contending teams out there that would want some of our players that are going to free agency next year. And if the Orioles want to compete this season, they're going to really have to get their act together by the time the trade deadline comes around, because if we get to the trade deadline and we're struggling a lot and Mike Elias kind of wants to pull the plug on the season and just kind of punt the season away and try and get some assets for guys that we don't know if they're going to come back, then that's going to be what's going to happen. So it's going to be a very sad few days when the trade deadline approaches, and obviously on the trade deadline day, it's going to be could potentially be a very sad day for Orioles fans. We might see a lot of players that we love dearly leave, but hopefully that doesn't happen, and hopefully, best case scenario, that this team can come back into the season and decide to stick with the team that they have, or potentially even try and upgrade the team to potentially go on a run to make the playoffs in the second half of the season. But that's still far ways away. There's no need to talk about that right now. So going over this Orioles offense in this game, they were able to get on base. That wasn't necessarily the problem. They had 8 total hits with 2 walks. 11 total base runners in this game. But the biggest problem in this game is obviously when we go over and look at the left on base and the runners in scoring position. The Orioles left 8 guys on base and were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Ramon Laureano was 0 for 2, Emmanuel Rivera 0 for 1, Ramon Urias 0 for 1, Gunnar Henderson 0 for 1, Colton Cowser 0 for 2, and Kobe Mayo 0 for 1. So 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. I mean, you're not going to win a game when you don't get a hit with runners in scoring position, and especially when you don't get a hit that's going to actually score a run. The Orioles only scored 1 run this game, and the 1 run that they scored was really not even like a generated run. It was a ground out that eventually someone Emmanuel Rivera got caught up in a rundown, but the run scored right before the tag happened. So it was dangerously close to where the Orioles were going to get shut out. And, I mean, the Orioles pretty much did get shut out in this game. The 1 run that they scored really, again, it wasn't really a run that was scored. It was off of a play that was milliseconds away from, canceling out the run and Ramon Urias not scoring. It was just a weird play. And Emmanuel Rivera got caught in a rundown, and it was just a weird play. I don't even really know how to, describe it, because, I mean, it's just low IQ stuff going on with this team where, the Orioles had a little bit of momentum in the top of the second inning, and then Emmanuel Rivera gets caught in a rundown. Ramon Urias scores before the tag happens, barely, and that's the only run that the Orioles scored. So, again, didn't really generate a run this game. But Jackson Holliday goes 1 for 4. Adley Rutschman goes 2 for 3. He was the only Oriole with a multi-hit game, so shout out Adley. Gunnar Henderson 1 for 4, Ramon Laureano 0 for 4, Ramon Urias 1 for 4, Colton Cowser 1 for 4, Kobe Mayo 1 for 4, Emmanuel Rivera 0 for 3, and Dylan Carlson 1 for 4. So Orioles offense, nothing really special. Again, only 1 run scored, and this 1 run wasn't even anything convincing. It was off of a freak play that ended up ending the inning anyways. So I really don't even consider this even being a run scored. I mean, we pretty much got shut out. At the end of the day, we pretty much got shut out in this game. We didn't get a hit with runners in scoring position, didn't hit a home run. It was just a weird way to score their only run. But the Orioles offense, again, just vanished in this game. They just completely disappeared. They just could not get going at all. When this game was within reach, and we were down 4-1 early, and we kind of just like sat back and punted the game. And this is kind of what I thought was going to happen in yesterday's game. Obviously, the Orioles in yesterday's game were down 4-1 after the first inning yesterday, but were able to come back and win 7-4. And I thought that we might be able to see that again today from the Orioles, but unfortunately we just were not able to see that. Going over to the pitching, Tomoyuki Sugano does get the loss in today's game. He does not have a great game by any means, but it wasn't all necessarily his fault. The Orioles did get a couple of errors in this game that did lead to some runs, some people getting on base and stuff like that. So, again, this was Tomoyuki Sugano's probably his worst start he's had all season. Only got through 4.1 innings, gave up 8 hits, 1 walk, 4 runs, but only 3 of them were earned because of the error, and 2 strikeouts, and 87 pitch count across 4.1 innings. His ERA goes up a little bit to a 3.23. He's obviously still having an excellent season this year, but he just doesn't have a great game today. Wasn't all completely 100% necessarily his fault. Didn't let up any long balls and stuff like that, but he didn't go as far as we would have hoped. Only went 4.1 innings. That means we kind of had to get to the bullpen a little bit early in today's game. And then Scott Blewett, he went 1.2 innings, no runs, no hits. Yennier Cano, 1 inning, no runs. And then Brian Baker, in the bottom of the 8th inning, gives up a solo home run to Max Muncy. And, I mean, by that time, this game was already over. When the Orioles couldn't score in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th inning, or 8th inning, it kind of just felt like it was over. That solo home run, it didn't really matter. But it extended the lead for the Athletics, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter because we knew that this team kind of just gave up on the game, which we've seen a lot for this season. Obviously, we've seen a lot of games this year where the starting pitching gives up a lot of runs early, and then this Orioles offense just kind of lays out and dies and then doesn't come back. We've seen that a lot early on. Recently, like in the 6-game winning streak, and in yesterday's win, the Orioles, when they were down early, they were coming back in games late and like having these miraculous comebacks, and you could see the energy. But unfortunately, the Orioles just kind of looks like what they did at the beginning of the season, and I hope that this is not going to be a trend that's going to happen moving forward. Hopefully that they are reverted back to the way that they were recently, but hopefully the Orioles don't do this again, because this is how they lost 38 games. Like, this is how they're losing games, is because they're being lazy and because the pitching just hasn't been great. But this game really is all on the offense again. This game was within reach the entire game, and they just couldn't do anything about it, which is unfortunate. And if they want to win the next series that they're going to play, they're going to have to be able to score runs, because they are going to be playing against the Detroit Tigers in this next series. The series starts on Tuesday. It's going to be in Baltimore. And we're facing a Tigers team that is 43-24. They have one of the best records in baseball. And the Tigers are a team that have done pretty good on the road as well, 20-15 on the road. But the Tigers are a team where their offense isn't necessarily amazing. Like, their offense goes out. If their offense goes out there and gets 5 or 6 runs, or maybe even 4 runs, then there's a good percentage that they're going to win this game. Because, again, the Tigers pitching, obviously led by their ace and reigning Cy Young winner in the American League, is Tarek Skubal. Their pitching's excellent. From their bullpen to their starters, their pitching is very, very, very excellent. And what they do a lot of the times is, the way that A.J. Hinch kind of runs the Tigers is such a weird way where, a lot of games feel like bullpen games for them. Obviously, they have guys like Jack Flaherty and Tarek Skubal who are starters who will go out there and try and go as long as they can. But a lot of the times the Tigers will go out there and run a bullpen game. And it's the way that the amount of bullpen depth that they have is ridiculous. Tomorrow's game versus Sawyer Gibson Long, who's going to be starting for the Tigers. I don't know how long he's going to be starting for. I don't know if they might have him go 2 innings max and then pull him and kind of give every pitcher like a 2 to 3 inning limit, and constantly just switching pitchers, constantly just making it uncomfortable for the offense. And that's kind of what this Tigers pitching likes to do, is it makes the Orioles offense uncomfortable because they can never really settle in with the pitcher that they're facing. If there's a starting pitcher in the game, if you strike out in your first at bat, you kind of learn like, okay, this is what he's good at, whatever. But then by the time you go up again, you have a better understanding of what that pitcher does. But when the Tigers be running bullpen games like this, you can never really adjust to the pitcher. And it's like a different pitcher every time you come up to bat. So it's a weird thing for the Tigers, but it does have success. Obviously, it had success in the playoffs last year when they beat the Astros in round 1. And then it's had success this year. Obviously, 43-24. They also have the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion, in Tarek Skubal. That we're going to be playing on Sunday. So that is going to be very interesting to see what happens in that game on Sunday versus Tarek Skubal. But tomorrow, Sawyer Gipson-Long, who has only pitched for 3.2 innings, but he has a 7.3 ERA. So in his very, very, very limited sample size, he has not done great. Cade Povich, obviously, he has struggled a lot this season. 1-4, 5.11 ERA, 1.47 WHIP. So we'll see what happens in this game. And again, the Orioles are at home, so they're coming back home off this little 6-game road trip that they had. And hopefully they can get back to it. Hopefully they can get back to business and just get back on track. If they could get a series win, or if they can get a series win against the Tigers, that would be very, very, very huge for this Orioles team moving forward. Obviously, you want to hope for the sweep because of the position that the Orioles are in, and I'll say this a million times, this Orioles team is in no position to be losing any series that they have moving forward, at least until All-Star break, where owners and people like that kind of take a step back, look at the team, and figure out what they want to do for the rest of the season and how they're going to handle it. So this Orioles team, over the next month and a half or so, they cannot afford to lose a single series if they want to get back into the season. They dug themselves this hole themselves. Like they dug this hole themselves, and they got to get out of it. They got to find a way to get out of it, and that means by winning games. Obviously, they had the 6-game winning streak that got ended, and then they just lost the series to the coldest team in baseball, which you don't want to see at all. So hopefully the Orioles can go against the Tigers here and get a nice series win. Minimum take 2 out of 3. Best case scenario is obviously getting the sweep, but we'll see what happens in the series. Hopefully the Orioles can just start off the series with a win on Tuesday. There will be a day off tomorrow, so I'm not going to be posting anything Orioles-related tomorrow. We'll see. I think I'm actually going to do an episode tomorrow about the Ravens, so we'll see about that. But hopefully the Orioles can get a win on Tuesday against the Tigers. But thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify, and make sure to click the links in those bios to check the socials as well. I'm live tweeting throughout every Orioles game and any sort of news that happens as well, and I'm also posting on Instagram, so make sure to follow those accounts. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow up on Spotify. I appreciate all the support. Episode 61, we're rolling through this series. I'm having a ton of fun doing this, obviously. And again, I appreciate all the support that you guys have given me. Tough loss for the Orioles today, obviously. Very tough loss, actually, because we lost the series off of it, which is what you never want to see. This was a series that the Orioles really had to win, mainly due to the opponent that we were facing. Like, you kind of just felt like you had to go win that series, and they couldn't do it. And it puts the Orioles back into a position where they just have to keep winning games to get back into the year. I'm obviously not going to call this season over with until I see what happens with the trade deadline, but we'll see what happens with that. I might have an episode up tomorrow talking about the Ravens. I think I have something planned for that, so we'll see what happens with that. But Orioles content will be back on Tuesday after the Tigers game. Sometime that night I'll be talking about the Tigers game and everything like that. And then also hopefully we'll get Jordan Westburg back as well. So we'll see what happens with the injuries and who we're going to be getting back. So because I think we're going to be getting Cedric and Jordan back very, very, very soon. And maybe Ravens content tomorrow. Ravens content obviously is going to start heating up here really soon with training camp, with mandatory mini camp and training camp starting. So we'll see how that goes. That's going to be very exciting. Very excited for football season. We really haven't gotten to talk too much football content on this show. The main football content that we've been talking about is pretty much just the draft and also, little updates here and there with signings and extensions and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens with everything. I'll see you on the next one. You have a great day. Peace out.